All right, today we're jumping into some really powerful ideas from Dr. Robert A. Glover's book, No Más un Tipo Lindo, which translates to No More Mr. Nice Guy. We're going to break down a personality pattern that affects so many men, and honestly, a lot of them don't even see it. So let's get right into it. So I want you to meet Jason. In his own words, he's a nice guy, probably one of the nicest you'll ever meet. And if you looked at his life from the outside, you'd think he's got it all figured out, right? He's a successful chiropractor, he's got a family. He really sees himself as a good, generous man, the kind of guy who solves problems, avoids drama, and always tries to do the right thing. He's actually pretty proud of that. But here's the catch. There was this huge, glaring problem. Despite all his efforts to be the perfect husband and father, his life was completely unraveling. His marriage was on the rocks, his sex life was basically zero, and he was just filled with this constant, simmering frustration that he just couldn't make sense of. So what on earth was going on? And that question, that leads us right to the heart of the whole thing. It's what Dr. Glover calls the nice guy paradox. And trust me, this is a concept that's a real eye-opener for a lot of people. Okay, so what is the nice guy syndrome? At its very core, it's a life strategy. Think of it like a secret, unwritten contract that these men have with the universe. It's built on this one fundamental belief. If I am good, if I do everything right for everyone else, then I will be loved, my life will be smooth, and my own needs will get met. I mean, it sounds pretty logical, doesn't it? But here's the thing. That contract, it's a total myth. And when the world and the people in it don't hold up their end of this imaginary bargain, these men don't question the strategy. Nope. They just double down. They think, well, I must not be doing it right, so they try to be even nicer. And this creates this awful, vicious cycle of giving more and more, getting less and less in return, and all the while just getting more and more resentful. And let's just look at how this actually played out for Jason in real life. He felt like he was walking on eggshells, constantly being criticized. You know, he'd do something he thought was helpful, like dressing the baby, and then get told he used the good dress. He'd spend his time scrubbing the entire kitchen, and his wife would walk in and immediately point out the one thing he missed. He felt like he was doing way more than any other husband he knew. But the one thing he really wanted, some intimacy, was completely off the table. He actually said, "All I want is to be loved and appreciated. Is that too much to ask?" So what really makes up this pattern? Let's take a closer look at the anatomy of a nice guy. And as we go through these, just see if any of them, ring a bell, maybe in yourself or maybe in someone you know. Now, a lot of these traits, they seem really positive on the surface, right? I mean, who doesn't want to be around someone who is generous, a caretaker, someone who wants to keep the peace? But the real issue here isn't what they're doing. It's the motivation behind it all. It's so often driven by this deep need for approval, this terror of conflict, and this habit of putting literally everyone else's needs first, to the point where they completely lose touch with what they want. Their own happiness becomes totally dependent on their partner's happiness, making that person the absolute center of their emotional universe. So, it all boils down to this internal script that's running on a loop in their head. It's this mental roadmap they're convinced will lead them to a smooth, happy, problem-free life. They genuinely believe there is a right way to do everything that will unlock love and happiness, and they pour all their energy into trying to figure it out and execute it perfectly. Okay, so up until now, this might just sound like a kind of frustrating, maybe a little ineffective, but mostly harmless way to live your life. But this is where we get to the core of the problem. There's a hidden, not-so-nice reality that's almost always lurking just beneath the surface. I mean, you have to ask, right? What's really so wrong with being a nice guy? It's a question almost every man who's dealing with this asks himself. If they're trying so incredibly hard to be good, where's the actual harm in that? Well, here it is. This is the big reveal. Those virtues we talked about, so often they're just a mask for some really counterproductive, even toxic behaviors. That generosity isn't free. It's a transaction. They are giving to get something back, whether that's appreciation, sex, or just avoiding a fight. That peaceful nature, it can easily turn into passive aggression, forgetting to do things, showing up late, being moody. Because they avoid direct conflict like the plague, they can become manipulative and controlling just to try and keep their world predictable. And because they're terrified of showing flaws, they become secretive and, fundamentally dishonest. And underneath that calm, stable exterior, there is often a pressure cooker of repressed rage just waiting to blow. And you can imagine this constant internal war, this whole Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde thing, it takes a massive toll. It creates this incredible stress that has to go somewhere, and often it gets funneled into addictions, secret online behaviors, and, as we saw with Jason, huge relationship problems. Ultimately, it holds them back from ever really reaching their full potential in their careers and just in life. So where does all this come from? Is it just a character flaw? Or some guys just wired this way? Well, Dr. Glover argues no, not at all. It's actually a survival strategy, one that gets forged way back in childhood. So let's check out the origin story. It really breaks down into three main stages. First, the child experiences some kind of abandonment. Now, this doesn't have to be some big dramatic event. It could be emotional neglect, a parent who's always critical, or just consistently having their needs ignored. Second, because kids are naturally egocentric, they internalize this. They think it's their fault. This creates something called toxic shame, which is a huge deal. It's not the feeling I did something bad. It's the deep core belief that I am bad. And then third, to cope with that awful feeling and to try and prevent being abandoned again, the child builds a survival mechanism, the nice guy persona. It's like putting on a mask to hide his supposed badness and become whatever he thinks people want him to be. So here's the absolute bottom line on this. This whole system, this entire nice guy paradigm, it's a roadmap that was drawn by a child to help him navigate a child's world. And back then, it was probably a necessary tool for survival. But the problem is, he's still using that same outdated, totally inaccurate map as an adult, and it's just leading him in circles, right into frustration and failure. Okay, so if the answer isn't to just try even harder at being nice, then what is the alternative? Well, this brings us to the final and honestly the most empowering part of all this, the journey from being a nice guy to what Dr. Glover calls an integrated man. And let's be crystal clear about this right from the start. This is probably the number one fear that nice guys have. If I stop being so nice, the only other option is to become a jerk or an abuser. But that's just black and white thinking. The real goal isn't to swing to the opposite extreme. The goal is to become whole. See, an integrated man isn't trying to hide parts of himself anymore. He's able to accept everything, the good, the bad, his strength, his imperfections. He owns his mistakes instead of trying to bury them. He acknowledges his own needs, his anger, his passions, all without shame. It's all about self-acceptance, not some impossible quest for perfection. So what does this actually look like in practice? Well, an integrated man doesn't make his partner his emotional center. He has his own solid sense of who he is. He doesn't give to get. He takes direct responsibility for meeting his own needs. He doesn't run from conflict. He sets clear boundaries and deals with issues directly and honestly. And maybe most importantly, he accepts that he is, just like every single one of us, perfectly imperfect. In the end, what Dr. Glover really emphasizes is that this isn't about just tweaking a few behaviors. It's about a complete and total shift in that internal roadmap we've been talking about. It's about finally throwing out that old, tattered childhood map and drawing a new, more accurate one for the world you actually live in as an adult. And that really leaves us with one final question to think about. It kind of challenges the very definition of what it means to be a good man. Because the goal isn't to be less good, it's to be more whole. It's a journey away from looking for approval on the outside and toward finding strength on the inside. It's the big shift from just being nice to being truly integrated.